What's up, everyone? Chris Record here, and welcome to Mindset Mondays. Welcome to Season 1, Episode 1, in fact, the first episode of a brand new season. Today's focus is going to be on long game versus short game mindset. Long game versus short game mindset. So with that being said, first of all, congratulations on taking the time to watch this, both live and in the replay in the members area. So we're excited about this series. The reason I call it Season 1, Episode 1 is because we want to launch this as a full-blown season where we could do numerous episodes, all with a specific focus. Today's focus is long game versus short game. But also, we want to be able to have a second season, a third season, a fourth season. This also allows for a break in between. There may be a time where I may need to take a short break in between seasons in order to sustain it. And by the way, here's a little bit of foreshadowing. That is all part of long game thinking, right? Long game thinking is thinking, hey, not only do I want to come out and share some mindset with you on Zoom, but how could I do it consistently? How can I do it in the best way possible? And what obstacles may come up in the future where I may have to figure out, yeah, I may be forced with having to quit this or having to be able to sustain it. And so long game thinking, just as a little foreshadowing, is all about figuring out how to see something working long-term despite the obstacles and things that will happen. As always, I've got my hot tea with me. So in case I start coughing, because I do Zooms and calls basically all day long, I've always got this. Okay, so let's kick things off. So first things first is your objective is to become a long game player, not a short game player. Your objective is to figure out how to battle your mindset, battle all of societal constructs around you, and figure out a way to be a long game player. Now, we're going to go into today's session. We're going to dive into the difference between the short game and the long game. We're going to describe some of the benefits, perks, and also some of the problems with each one of them. However, if you were to weigh them out together and if you're going to say, I want to give myself the greatest chance for success. The greatest chance for success is going to be with long game. So if you were to weigh them all out, that's going to be the greatest chance for success. Short game is going to be the most tempting. It's going to be the thing that's going to always get your attention, right? But long game is what's going to be actually going to take you over the finish line. And that's what you need. Because at the end of the day, you can't just be like a distracted little squirrel running around trying to go out there and chase a different nut, right? You got to be able to stay focused and see things through to completion and succeed. So let's talk a little bit about short game versus long game. Short game are things that are instant, sort of emotionally instant, exciting, right? They're things that literally, they're things that, by the way, we're not taking questions today. I know a couple people raise their hands, stuff like that. We're not doing questions in today's session, but they're basically instant gratification. Short game is instant gratification, right? So it's things like money today. That's the biggest one, right? How can I get paid today, right? That is short game. How can I get paid today? Even this month would be short game. How can I make enough money to be able to cover my bills this month? Okay, short game is how can I, God, I got this credit card bill. I need to pay off my credit card debt. Right? Short game is all of these things that are right in front of us like this, right? They cloud our vision. There's all of these things. And what happens is we're so busy dealing with all these things right in front of us that we don't ever really get a chance to focus on what's further down the road and start preparing for that. So if you've ever heard things like the rat race, the hamster wheel, or living check to check, right? If you've ever heard of these type of statements, these are all short game statements, right? You're basically running on a hamster wheel, but if you ever get off to take a break, then let's say when you run on the hamster wheel, it basically, once you do like enough laps, it gives you some cheese, right? And it gives you some water. And if you ever want cheese and water, you got to get back on and you got to do it again. The problem is all you'll ever be doing is you'll be stuck on that hamster wheel for the rest of your life, just running and running and spinning and spinning and spinning, not actually getting anywhere. Right? When they say living check to check, when somebody gets to a point in their life where they're actually living check to check, that is because they are currently in the short game. They are playing the short game. Now, you could be playing the short game maybe by some consequence that happened in your life. Okay. Maybe you were married and the relationship was great and everything was great. Maybe you went through a divorce. Financially, you had to start over from scratch. Maybe you were in a successful business and the business came crashing down, or maybe, your partner stole money from you. It could be anything, right? You could be circumstantially in the short game where it's like my situation right now is I'm check to check and it just happened out of nowhere. I didn't see it coming and I'm playing the short game right now. Or you might actually be in there purposefully. And I hate to break the news to you, but the majority of people playing the short game are intentionally playing that game. The majority of people are intentionally playing that game, meaning either they got stuck in the short game a while ago, but they chose to intentionally stay there. They intentionally chose to stay in the short game, or they're just in the short game, right? And they never were out of it. They just never saw a way out. They never saw a way to escape the rat race, right? So the idea is to move from the short game to the long game. So the short game is all of these things that are right in front of you. You're always trying your hardest to be able to accomplish these things right in front of you. And you're never stopping to actually see, okay, what is 100 yards out, 500 yards out, 1,000 yards out, right? What is 1 year out, 2 years out, 3 years out, 5 years out, 10 years out? What does it look like then? Where do I want to be? How does that look like? And how can I make sure I'm on that path? Now, let's talk about the long game. The long game is where you have the highest probability of success. For example, let me give you a perfect example. So let's say that you're, I don't know, out in the jungle. Okay, here'll be a fun analogy for you. You're flying a plane. Okay, you've got your pilot's license, you're out flying a plane over a jungle, and all of a sudden the plane has to land, right? You find like a little strip, whatever, the plane has to come to a landing really quick. Maybe you need fuel, maybe it was an emergency, whatever it was. Right? The plane has to land. So now you're stuck out here, out in the middle of nowhere, and you've got this plane, you've got the ability to fly it, and maybe even got some fuel. You were able to find some fuel. But in order to take off, the thing is that a plane can't just go straight up and take off. In order to take off, you need a runway. And so you're looking at the runway and you're going like, man, I got 100 feet of runway. That's not enough to get speed in order to get enough momentum to actually take me off and fly. And your goal in this analogy is to fly, right? Your actual goal is to fly. So in order to fly, you got this plane, you know how to fly it, you got fuel for it, right? That's like having the education, you have the skills, you have the strategy, and you have the tools for it. But in order to get it to fly, you actually need a runway. You need enough room to be able to get enough speed and enough momentum to be able to take off. And most of you don't realize, in business, people talk about this a lot. When people go in to raise capital, one of the reasons why they need to raise capital is they need enough runway to complete a product. So in the example of IIS is bootstrapped. Bootstraps mean pull up from your own bootstraps, right? Mean it's self-funded. IIS is self-funded. And the reason why is because it didn't make sense to go out and get investment capital. So by self-funding, you have to always figure out a way to how can there be enough, how can we pay for enough runway to be able to launch this company without having to stop and then go and seek investment capital. But even if you have investment capital, that would buy you maybe a year of runway. You'd say, okay, I've got enough money to last a year. Now I can focus every single day on trying to do this. You need enough runway in your business to be able to take off. But the problem is people are saying, well, the reason I don't have enough runway is because I'm living check to check. I could barely afford my bills right now. How am I supposed to give myself runway? But this is the battle you have to have in your own mind. You have to figure out a way to be able to give yourself more runway if you want to succeed. Bottom line. And so we're going to talk today about how to be able to expand that runway so you can get that plane going up just enough to be able to take off. You know, the example I used to share, I'm a little rusty on it. The example I used to share was Back to the Future, because I remember watching Back to the Future and I was like, that's such a perfect example. The car, the DeLorean, had to get up to like 88 miles per hour in order to be able to get enough momentum to be able to actually go into time travel, right? But there needed to be like enough runway, and sometimes they couldn't get enough speed for it, right? And so if you want to be able to travel like that to an abundant place, to a different lifestyle and stuff like that, you got to get your financial vehicle up to 88 miles per hour. Okay, maybe we'll kind of find some fun analogy for that in the future, but you got to figure out a way to get there. You got to figure out a way to get to 88 miles per hour. And in order to do this, that's mostly what I'm going to talk about today for the long game. The long game has all the benefits. The long game is sustainable. The long game is once you get there, you can stay there for a long time. A lot of you guys can stay there for life, meaning if you can get enough runway to actually get there flying, you can figure out how to be able to, keep that plane in the air as long as you need, be able to travel and go anywhere you want. It's essentially freedom, right? You're essentially able to escape the rat race. You're able to escape the job. You're able to achieve freedom if you can really just get there. The hardest part is getting there. It is hard staying there. Don't get me wrong. If 100 of you get to this place of financial freedom, 100% of you won't stay there, unfortunately. But literally, I mean, for those of you that get there with the right principles, I mean, more than half of you will be able to stay there. There will be another battle you will have to face once you get there. But what we're going to work on is long game thinking. So let's spend a little bit of time right now talking to you about some long game strategies that have worked well for me. Okay. So the thing is that when you're focused on the short game, you're focused on, for example, how can I make money right now? Okay. You have to, whenever you find yourself in this situation where you can't see anything past, you're like, but this is all that matters right now. This thing is what matters. As soon as you catch yourself there, you're going to have to stop and you're going to have to remember this session and say, you know what? Let me stop for a minute. Any of these, like you got to ask yourself why, actually just ask yourself that one word if you want to write it down, just why. Why am I doing this in the first place? Because this is consuming so much of my attention and I don't have the result that I want. Why did I take my eye off the result to do this in the first place? Okay. The example I'm going to give you here is that you have to always be reminding yourself of the destination that you want to go to. So if you're in, let's say in the United States, let's say you're in New York and you want to fly to Los Angeles, right? You have to always be remembering that the journey has a destination of Los Angeles. Los Angeles is the goal. But there's so many problems that can happen along the way. Let's say problem one, let's say the flight gets canceled. And so you're like, okay, don't worry, we'll just rent a car and we'll drive. And let's say problem number two is that you don't have enough money to be able to rent a car and drive. Suddenly you're like, man, and life just starts beating you up and everything you think is going wrong starts going wrong and you can't get to your destination of Los Angeles. And so what they do is they give up on their goals. And the reason they give up on their goal is because their goal is too big. The goal of getting to Los Angeles, the reason they're facing all those obstacles is because they had not leveled up to the position to where they can handle that big of a goal. And what you need to do is you need to chunk down that long, big goal. You need to chunk it down into shorter goals. Okay. And you've done this in your life, you guys. It's easy to do in your life. Is you have a long game goal. You have a goal the goal you actually want to achieve. And then you chunk it into smaller practical steps to be able to get there. If anybody here went to school, you did that, right? So let's say that your goal was to get a degree, okay, in something, right? You had a goal. You have a goal. You're like, I'm going to get this degree one way or the other, right? So then you have this long goal. You know, this is going to take years of work, not only years of work, but hours and hours and hours. And I'm probably going to have to be working a job along the side, or maybe even two jobs. I mean, maybe I have a family or kids. It's going to take sacrifice, stress, and everything for this long goal. But the reason that goal is achievable for so many people is because the educational system is well outlined and documented with a bunch of individual smaller goals to be able to get you there. So essentially, you're able to take this one big goal and you're able to break it down to a bunch of micro goals. And this big goal is well defined. So, like in order to get a degree, you need this, and this, right? It's very obvious. In order for me to get that degree, I need this many credits. I need this many classes. I need these are the prerequisites and the requisites and this type of stuff, right? It's all structured. And so when something is structured for you, when somebody else has done the work to be able to organize and structure something for you, it's a lot easier for you to follow along. But you don't just wake up and say, okay, I'm going to go become a lawyer. Right? You don't just wake up and say, I'm going to become a lawyer. You have to be practical about it. No lawyer says, okay, I'm just going to go do this. It's like you have to be practical and you have to say, okay, what is a realistic timeline it's going to take me for me to be able to become a lawyer? Right? and then go backwards from there. Okay, what do I need? What degree do I need? What tests, what exams do I need to be able to pass? In order to get this degree, what classes do I need to be thinking about right now to be able to get there? So for somebody's on that trajectory, they're thinking way early. They're thinking years in advance about how to be able to achieve that goal. And this is the same for pretty much like most careers. And so what I'm telling you is that most of you are already equipped with the right mindset to be able to actually be a long game thinker. But when it comes to making money online, or when it comes to being an entrepreneur or being your own business or being your own boss, most of you just suddenly like your brain goes in, your brain gets fried, your brain gets scrambled, and you're like, this doesn't make sense. Make sense of this, right? And the reason is because somebody else isn't giving you a clear, exact path to follow to be able to achieve that goal. Somebody else isn't doing it for you. It's like, you're like, wait, I have to do this myself. I don't know how. But the thing is that you do know how. You need to tap into the long game expertise that you already have. You know how to do this. You know how to see this through. And if you didn't go to college, whatever, I didn't go to college personally. So if you didn't go to college, that's fine. You can still succeed. You have to tap into. The first thing you have to do is you have to say, where in my life have I set a long game goal and seen it through? Maybe your goal was, maybe you were in martial arts and you set a goal to get a certain belt, right? I mean, it could have been anything. It could be a sport. Maybe you set a goal to go to a championship game. It could have, you know what I'm saying? You could apply it to pretty much anything. So you're going to need to pull from somewhere in your life that you've gotten a result and use that and harness that as the fuel and momentum to remind you that you are skilled, you are gifted, meaning you're not confused, you're not overwhelmed, you're not scrambled, your brain's not fried. You are equipped with everything that you need. You just need to remind yourself frequently to stay focused on the long game. Remind yourself frequently. So all the time, like, okay, for example, today is Mindset Mondays. I could have just focused on the short game and said, hey, everybody, let's just jump on a Zoom and let's just meet up on Monday, right? And just see how it goes. That is called inspired action. There's nothing wrong with it in the experimenting phase. So when it comes to experimenting, I highly recommend the short game. The short game is very non-committal. The short game is very fun. And if you're non-committal, then you won't be upset if you don't hit your goal. Okay, meaning set really low expectations in the short game. Okay, do you guys want to know what one of the biggest common definitions of failure is? It's essentially not meeting an expectation, right? Especially an expectation that you've set yourself in your own mind. Okay, so an example of a failed relationship is you had an expectation of a relationship in your mind of what it could be, what it should be, what you hope it is, and it didn't work out. So you would chalk that up as a failed relationship, right? And so the key is the key to like think about here is that in order to prevent failure, you have to get good at managing expectations. In the short game, you manage the expectations by setting them very low. Okay, setting them very low. In the long game, you manage expectations by setting the long game expectations very high, but you set a series of small goals to achieve on the way and then manage those. And you don't have to set them low, but set them super realistic. So you have a big goal. Maybe you want to be a millionaire. That would be a big goal. Like a goal would be like, I want to make $100,000 a month or $10,000 a month, whatever it is, a big, ambitious goal. But that's the long game goal, right? If you already knew how to do it, you would already do it, right? To know when not to do is not to know. So you don't really know yet what it is you're supposed to be doing. So you set the goal. That's a big, ambitious goal with a high expectation, right? If you just set the goal and you try this out and you don't reach the goal, you'll have failed. But if you set that goal and then you work backwards to create small, little achievable goals along the way, and these goals will get you to that destination, then you can start creating wins along the way. You can start having little micro successes along the way. And what will happen is you won't feel like you are failing. You'll feel like you are winning along the way. So when I talk to people a lot, people use languages like this. They'll use words that are so harmful. They'll use words like, hey, Chris, I have this problem that this isn't working for me. Or, hey, Chris, I'm considering joining this, but I just got out of a company and I ended up losing my money, or it didn't work out for me. And they'll use this harmful language. What they'll do is they will create a story in their mind about how something else didn't work for them, right? Because the thing is that we naturally gravitate towards a victim mentality. And the reason we gravitate towards a victim mentality is because if we can blame somebody else, then we don't put the pressure on ourselves. And if we put the pressure on ourselves, most of us don't know how to deal with it. Most of us don't know how to deal with the fact of accepting responsibility, accepting pressure, right? It by blaming ourselves, we're like, what? I was talking to a guy when I was going and getting Dutch Bros. I was talking with a guy who essentially had said that the reason he was homeless was because he had a gambling addiction. And in Las Vegas, I'm sure you guys can imagine that's probably the cause of a lot of homelessness, right? And he was talking about how he was married and he had a family. And, he just ended up he just ended up chasing it so bad that he would spend anytime that he would make some money. He's like, if I could just go and win, then I'll be able to catch up I'll be able to fix all the mistakes that I've made, that I've cursed my family with. But unfortunately, obviously, this person he was even telling a story. He's like, one time I was actually up, and he's like, I was up so big, and I was like, this could be the time where I get it all back. And then he just lost it all again. So he had won like some type of jackpot, and he's like, if I just let this ride, it's crazy, right? So, anyways, I'm talking with him, and he's homeless, right? And the thing is that he got stuck in this vicious cycle. And all that mattered to him was the immediate problem to be able to solve, right? He wasn't focused on the long game. He wasn't focused on how to be able to, he wasn't focused on how to be able to fix anything. He wasn't focused on how to be able to solve his problem. He wasn't focused on anything like that. And when you meet people like this, it's like this person has given up on their long game goals completely. They have zero long game goals at all. They don't have the mindset anymore. They've lost it. All they have is, how can I get some money today? How can I get some beer? How can I get some food? How can I get some water? His life is the epitome of day to day, check to check, really, but day to day. And the thing is that that's the serious short game. The super short game is where people are trying to survive. They're just living day to day and trying to survive. And the super long game is where you're going to find the elites. You're going to find, people that run for president or whatever, probably had that vision, like 12 years in advance or whatever it might be, right? And they started putting the plays in place, or like the Elon Musks or those types of people, whoever, Jeff Bezos, whoever these people are that have built such grand visions, right? And so the thing is that when you're setting this goal, you need to set these little micro goals, create these little wins. And when you're winning, it releases this dopamine inside of you. And when you're losing, it actually and by the way, I'm not being ultra scientific. Think about this like a metaphor or analogy, right? So these little wins basically give you energy. You're like, oh my God, I'm a winner. And it starts brainwashing yourself that you're a winner, right? But when you start failing, then you start seeing yourself as a loser. And then that brainwashes yourself that you're a loser. So you have to realize that you're the one in control of your life. You're the one in control of your decisions. You're the one in control of your choices. You're the one in control. So if you could say, hey, I'm going to be brainwashed one way or the other. I'm either going to be brainwashed that I'm a winner or be brainwashed that I'm a loser. So the words that you speak matter a lot. The words that you speak will dictate your belief, right? So if you're like, hey, I'm overwhelmed, then you are speaking that into existence. You are wanting to believe that will be true. Yes, indeed, you will feel overwhelmed. Or, hey, I'm struggling. Or, hey, I'm confused. Hey, I'm old and I don't learn technology as fast as some of these other people. Whatever it might be, the words that you use are essentially building and crafting your beliefs, and it will eventually be the thing that you'll believe. In fact, the reason you're speaking it now is because you've spoken it for so long. The fact of the matter is that being older makes you smarter. It makes you wiser. Everything is more advantageous to you. So what you don't realize is that, let's take any one of these. Like if you're saying, hey, I'm old and therefore I don't learn technology well. That's just not true. It's not something that is actually true. This is something that you are, this is something that you want to be true, because on a subconscious level, it's a lot easier to blame other people. You know, going back to the homeless guy, this homeless guy blamed the casinos and the gambling industry for not caring about people and rigging everything in their favor, right? He does not take personal, he still to this day does not take personal responsibility. He feels like a victim. He feels like he is a victim, and he feels like other people have caused this to him and his life, right? And the thing is that by default, we want to become victims. And because we want to become victims, to be a victor, to be victorious is rare. For every let's say 100,000 victims, you're going to get one person that's a victorious, right? It's the 1% club, right? It's not even the one, it's the 0.01% club. It's not 1 out of 100. It's like 1 out of 100,000. It's like the 0.001% club, right? It's the rare, just the first thing that you have to have is you have to have a victor mentality. And a victor mentality would never accept that you are not good at something. A victor mentality would never even allow that thought to come in place. So if somebody was saying like, but you don't understand my situation, I am old and I don't learn technology well. The problem is that statement will not serve you. That belief will not serve you. So when you want to focus on the long game, you want the outcome. You want to get paid the kind of money that a surgeon gets paid, a brain surgeon gets paid, which here in affiliate marketing is so much, in my opinion, in my personal opinion, disclaimer, is 1,000 times easier becoming a surgeon. You know what I'm saying? Like I feel like I could teach my 13-year-old how to make 6 figures just from a YouTube channel. But do you know how difficult it would be to teach him to be a brain surgeon? Right? The reality is that it's just mind-blowing simple, right? Technology is one of the greatest transfers of wealth in this technological revolution, right? It's one of the greatest transfers of wealth, this information age, right? It's just so much easier to get wealthy. It's so much simpler to make money than it's ever been in history, literally, for the average person, because the average person's connected to all the information, has all the resources and training never existed before, and everything keeps getting better and easier and better and easier and better and easier. It's ridiculous right now to create problems on your journey. So what you need to do, step 1, you need to choose long game goals. You need to choose to be a long game player and say, I'm in this thing for the long game. Here's my big long game goals. And then come back and break those into short goals. Break those into short little achievable goals. Like, for example, it's football season right now. So this past weekend was like a big football weekend here in Vegas. There's a lot of bettors and stuff like that. And tonight, actually, my team that I like is the 49ers. They play tonight. So the thing is that the 49ers their big goal, their long game goal, anybody want to know what it is? And right now, in the chat right now, I'll tell you guys what it is, but what's the 49ers long game goal? Any football team's long game goal. What is their long game goal? Right? I want to show you guys how short game thinking works versus long game thinking. Their long game goal, the 49ers football team, the long game goal is the Super Bowl. They want to win the Super Bowl. So they have an entire season that they want to play, and their goal is to win the Super Bowl. In order to get there, right? They had an entire off season prior to that where they had to practice getting prepared for this season. So their goal just for this season is to win the Super Bowl. But in order to even start game 1, they would have an entire season where just refining my skills, leveling up, and just getting myself ready for it. And you know what they had to do before that? They had to spend, theoretically, their entire life, adult, somewhat teen to adult life. They had to spend their entire life getting to that moment. So if you think about it, their goal is to win the Super Bowl. In order to even start game 1, they had to have take an entire season to even get there. In order to do that, they had to take an entire career, essentially, of since they were a teenager all the way through to be able to even make it there. And they had to compete at the highest level to be selected amongst their peers. One out of thousands and thousands and thousands of football players even gets a chance. It's the highest level of competition with that long goal. But you know what? It gets even longer. You know, it's even longer goal than that is the owner of the team or the owners of the team have a bigger picture goal. Not only do we want to win the Super Bowl this year, we want to get a new stadium. So they're sitting themselves thinking, what can we do to be able to get a new stadium? What can we do to be able to increase revenues as a company? So they're already thinking, 10 years out, if we can get these certain players and organize and build this kind of team, we could have a team that's a playoff contention team, a team that is a Super Bowl contender. And this can be able to increase our attendance at our events, increase our concessions, increase our tickets, increase our revenue, increase our jerseys, increase this and that. And they're constantly thinking about how to be able to take the team to be able to create enough revenue where we can bring on bigger players and be able to create enough of a star team where the fans all get hyper engaged and then be able to take that and be able to build a new stadium. And essentially those people are looking to buy a team for $1 billion and flip it for $10 billion. Long game thinking. In the chat, let me know if anybody's ever played the game Risk. Have you guys ever played the game Risk growing up? A board game where you essentially get to, your goal is to try to battle other players and try to conquer continents, I guess, there's variations of it. So in the game of Risk, if you're a short game player in Risk, will that work? Do you have any chance of winning if you're a short game player in the game of Risk? Right? There's low chance. Instead of saying none, let's just say low. You could, if you're a short game player, you have to get lucky. You have to say, you know what? I'm just going to attack and see what happens. Or I'm just going to sit tight and build up my troops and see what happens. Well, the people that win consistently in that game, the people that win consistently are the people that analyze the board and they actually develop a strategy. They develop a long game strategy. Their strategy is, okay, my goal is to eventually, obviously, win the game. The reason you play is to win. My goal is to win the game. Also have fun doing it, but the objective is to win the game. So you have to understand what the game is and how do you win. You got to conquer all the continents, right? In the world. And so the thing is, then you start to say, okay, in order to conquer all these continents, when there's all these other people also trying to conquer all the continents, I have to have a strategy. And you start developing this long game strategy. You go, okay, my goal is to win. So let me go back and let me look at the board and say, is there kind of an area of the board that I can start to kind of consolidate my troops? Is there a continent? Is there a single continent that I can kind of maybe get enough of my troops in where I can maybe take that continent? Right. And then so you're like, okay, I want to take North America. And you got to go, okay, North America has 3 entrances into it. So I have to be able to, one, find a way to be able to take the whole continent and have all my troops in there and be able to reinforce enough protection to keep the continent. And the thing is, you can't just go in there and just start attacking other troops, because if you don't have a plan, as soon as you're like, hey, look, I attacked everybody, somebody else with a plan is going to come in and just smother you. So you have to be a long game thinker. So these strategy games are they're analogies of what it takes to succeed in internet marketing. You need to be a long game thinker. You need to come in with a strategy. You need to know your big strategy. Okay, we're going to win the Super Bowl. In order to win the Super Bowl, we got to get to the playoffs. In order to get to the playoffs, we got to at least be wild card or better. In order to be wild card or better, we need to win. We have to at least win this many games on average. And if we have a competitive league, then we might have to win slightly more. In order to win that many games, we need to pull in a per game strategy. In order to get a per game strategy, we need to figure out these strategies. You know what I'm saying? It's long game is broken into a lot of short goals. And at the end of the day, their goal is every Sunday or whatever, just to win that game. But even in order to win that game, they have to make constant course corrections. Right? They have to make constant course corrections. Meaning if they're behind, they got to change their strategy to one thing. If they're ahead, they got to change the strategy to another thing. If their strategy is not working, they have to recoup at halftime. They have to switch it again. These are called constant course corrections. So what you need to do is you need to be setting this long game goal, setting a bunch of little short game goals, and then implementing and executing these short game goals. And when something's not working the way you want, you have to make little tweaks and little constant course corrections. So that's exactly what you need to do. And you need to be able to constantly, the course corrections are self-accountability. You need to be able to ask myself, am I really doing what's needed to get the job done? Or am I just being busy? Or am I just being busy? Am I really doing what's needed to get the job done? Or am I just being busy? Because when I set a long goal, so I'm going to put myself right now in the mindset of one of you. I'm going to say, okay, my goal is to make $10,000 as an affiliate of the internet income system. Okay, there's going to be my goal. My goal is to make $10,000 as an affiliate of the internet income system. Okay, well, I'm not just going to wake up one day and get there. So let's discuss how to turn that long game goal into a realistic, sustainable, achievable goal. The first thing you need is you need runway. We're going to consider that goal is you're in the air, your plane is flying. You need runway. You need enough runway to be able to get this plane in the air. You need to be able to get to 88 miles per hour to get that DeLorean to time travel, right? That's what that goal of $10,000 is. So first thing you need is you need enough runway. Now, runway is either time or money. It's either time or money, or a combination or a hybrid of the two. So what I mean by that is runway might just be time, meaning, okay, I'm going to give myself 1 year to get to $10,000 a month. And my goal at the end of the year is to have a sustainable $10,000 a month business that I can quit my job. And I'm going to give myself 1 year. Okay, so the 1 year would be the runway. So the shorter runway you give yourself, if you give yourself just one little short parking lot to try to get the DeLorean to 88 miles per hour, it may not be able to get there. You may just fail. And you say, but I sprinted. I put the pedal to the metal and I ran as hard as I could and I didn't achieve it. That's because you didn't have enough runway. So you have to have enough runway. So the big thing about runway is the longer runway that you can give yourself, the higher probability you have to succeed. So let's say that you have a plane and you need to get it off the ground, but let's say you've got a clear runway of literally an entire mile. You got a whole mile of runway. You're going to be fine. You know you're going to get that plane in the air. So you just have to make sure you have all the fundamentals. Does the plane work? Do I have the right tools? Do I know how to fly the plane? Do I have the right skills? Have I practiced? Am I ready for this moment? As long as everything else is in place and you have the runway, you're going to be able to take off. So it's a combination of getting these things. We call this skill set, tool set, and mindset. You have to have the right skills, you have to have the right tools, and you have to have the right mindset. So the first thing you need is you need runway. You want to give yourself the longest runway possible. And then the second thing is you can't squander away that runway. So if you give yourself, you're like, bro, I gave myself a mile, I'm going to take off, no problem. So you kind of just start off slow. You know, the plane's just kind of inching. You like kind of get the feel for it. Then you go a little bit faster, get a feel for it, go a little bit faster. Then the problem is that you're going to get all the way to the end of the runway and be like, oh my God, how did I get to the end? How did I run out of my runway? And the thing is, this happens to everybody. When companies raise capital, companies constantly think they've got enough money to succeed, and then they run out. Have you guys ever heard the analogy that things take longer and cost more than you normally expect them to? Or the statement, have you guys ever heard that? Things usually end up costing more and taking longer than you originally expected. This happens with, like, if you're building your first house, right? Or something like that. It's like, it just, or what about your marriage, right? It's like, yeah, that ended up taking longer and costing more than I thought it would, you know, whatever it might be, right? Things just end up taking longer and costing more than you think that they will. So you have to expect that. Like, if you want a short game thinker just has optimism. A short game thinker is like, bro, I am so fired up. I'm just going to start referring people. This is going to be exciting, you guys. We're going to get rich. That's a short game thinker. Optimism. The only way you can survive in the short game is that you either have a huge amount of optimism that somehow you're going to make it work in the short game, or you have an extreme amount of pessimism, meaning that you don't believe in yourself. You don't believe in the game. You've pretty much just given up on the game. The game has beat you up and hurt you to the point where you just got disrespect for the game at this point. You don't like it, you know. But what you really need is, you don't need this hyper pessimism or hyper optimism. You just don't need it, you guys. Let's just be real. You know what you need? You need realism. You know, how long, if you wanted to go become a doctor, You would need a realistic path to be there. If you wanted to go become a lawyer, you would need a realistic path. If you wanted to become a pilot, you would need a realistic path. Like, there's a certain amount of education you're going to need. Then there's a certain amount of skills training you're going to need. You have to get a certain amount of hours flown before you can even fly by yourself, right? You got to put in the time. You can't shortcut it. You can't cheat it. So why do so many people enter the make money online industry and have a short game, instant gratification mindset? It makes no sense. It's why so many people fail. You know why? Because the doors are wide open. You're like, hey, Chris, I just got out of prison this morning. I got this EBT card. I just got out of prison, man. Can I join your company? It's like, yeah. The buried, like we could take somebody that's been rejected everywhere else, and we still welcome them in our industry. That homeless guy, I could literally invite the homeless guy to come watch our Zooms. You know what I'm saying? Anybody can join this, though, because there's a low barrier to entry. There's going to be a super high failure rate because, you know, the fact of the matter is that anybody can join. So if anybody can do this, you got to expect most will fail. Even if there was an obstacle, even if we said you have to have a college degree, still most would fail. But when you take away, you could just be fresh out of prison today. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's the reason there's such a high failure rate is because there's such an open policy. There's such an open door to everybody to be able to have this opportunity. So you need to understand that. You need to understand that you are in an industry that's wide open, has a lot of people. And so in this industry, there are essentially, I'm going to break you into a couple different groups right now. There are the goalables. Okay, you're on Team Goalable, right? You're going to join, some of you are going to join this team, Team Goalable, right? And then there's going to be other team which is going to be like Team, I don't know, let's say Guru, right? There's going to be these teams out there, right? There's these gurus that are basically seeing that all the people are gullible, and then there's these gullables that are basically buying everything from the gurus. And that's why that industry is filled with short game thinking. What I'm talking about is let's create a new team. Let's create a team where you don't have to be a guru capitalizing on the gullibility of the market, but you don't have to be a gullible person who's just shelling out money for all these different courses and all these different things, stuff like that. Let's form our own team, right? Let's form our actual own team where we're not gullible and we're not gurus, right? And what we're doing is we're being realists, right? And we're saying the reason this industry is filled with instant gratification is because it's filled with promises of exaggerated riches that you can get. And they're going to show you somebody who made, hey, this guy made $2.6 million in his first 30 days of starting his own digital agency. And for just $2,000, you could start your own digital agency today. And you're like, 2,000? And I could make 2.6 million in my first 30 days? You need to click and say, oh, I get it. That's clickbait. That's an exaggerated income claim. That doesn't mean that person's bad. That person's just in the industry. That's just how the industry works. You need to click for a minute and say, okay, which team am I operating on right now? Am I on this Team Gullible, where I will just fall for any software, any tool, any resource? Do you know what I'm saying? See, the thing is that you got to understand my position, right? We benefit more financially. We make a lot more money financially if we convince you to be part of Team Gullible. When I'm saying don't be gullible, that means also I will have a harder time ever selling you, right? I'll have a harder time ever selling you if you're less gullible. So what most gurus want you to do is they want you to be more gullible, buy this. And then as soon as you're inside of it, you're like, it's not working for me. You know why it's not working? Because you need to upgrade to this. So you buy that. And you're like, it's not working. You know what? If you get this, this should solve your problem. It's not that. Okay, if you get this, this should solve your problem. And that's how it just Team Global is like, that person's like, oh, okay, that's what the issue is. And they just keep paying. So what we wanted to do here was we wanted to reverse everything, kind of the anti-guru model, right? Our program is free to join. This training is free to watch. Every Monday, I'm going to keep doing these. They're all free to watch, right? This course is free to join. The program's free to join. It's free to become an affiliate. And we're going to give you a path where you can reinvest your money that you earn as an affiliate into anything that you want. Whether you want to reinvest into, maybe you just want to go out and buy a car. Maybe you want to go out and buy jewelry. I don't care. Maybe you want to go out and buy clothes, whatever. Or maybe you want to invest in some software to be able to scale your business. Maybe you want to invest into some resources to make more money. I'm the type of person that when I start making money, I set some aside and I reinvest. I usually reinvest about half the money. Like whatever amount of money I make, I usually reinvest about half of it. That's just kind of like, I always like reinvesting back into the things I'm doing because it gives me passion. It gives me purpose. Right? I always want to do more with what I'm doing. So essentially, your long game strategy, if you give yourself enough runway to be able to get there, and you give yourself small achievable goals, which create wins, which create dopamine, and you stop setting expectations that you miss, which creates failure, which reverses the dopamine and extracts it from you unofficially, right? Once you start doing that, then you'll become a winner. And you'll start winning. So if I was an affiliate here and I want to set a goal to make $10,000 a month, the first thing I would do is I would set a realistic goal. I would say, okay, to make $10,000 a month, I'm going to give myself, X amount of time to be able to do so. And that amount of time is going to be based on your experience. So for example, the first question I'd ask myself is, have I ever made $10,000 a month in my own business before? That would be the first question. If I haven't, I'm going to need a longer runway because things are going to cost more and take longer than I expect them to. So if I think I can get it done in 6 months, I'm probably going to give myself a 1-year runway. Now, if last month let's say you're a network marketer and you're making 10 grand a month in your current network marketing company and you're looking at this and you're like, yeah, this looks like a great offer. Then your runway doesn't need to be a year. You might be able to get to $10,000 a month inside of 90 days here. Do you know what I'm saying? You might be able to set a goal of 90 days to be able to get there. And so first thing you have to do is you have to manage expectations. Okay. If a family were going to risk their money on you, let's say a family were going to buy your runway, just hypothetically, and the family's like, okay, well, how much time do you need to be sure that you hit this goal? And you don't want to tell them, oh, trust me, I'm going to get this done in 30 days. You wouldn't want to say that. That would be disrespectful to say to your family who's believing in you and helping you out, right? You would want to give enough time to make sure you actually going to hit the goal. So you'd go to your mom, whoever, you'd say, hey, honestly, I'm going to give myself a full year to make sure that I have enough runway and I have enough time to be able to accomplish this goal. My goal is 1 year of full focus here, and to be able to get to a point of making $10,000 a month in income with my own online business, right? And then you would break that down per month. You're not just going to get to month 9 and you've only made $100, right? You're going to have to then break it down into small achievable goals. And then those small achievable goals, the biggest thing I want to ask you is, are you just a hamster on a wheel, or are you actually doing income producing activities? With those small goals, you want to do income producing activities. Now, this is, if you guys want some math, I'll give you some math that you could put down in your notes right now. Okay. If you're brand new and you've never made any money online, or maybe you've only made a few bucks here and there, or maybe you haven't made money recently online, it's been a decade or something. If you're basically in that boat, right? We haven't made enough money online yet, then I would set my goals this way. You guys ready? This is called the 50-50 focus, 50-50 focus, 50-50 focus. 50% of your time on income producing activities and 50% of your time learning. So 50% of your time learning and 50% of your time doing. But when I say doing, I specifically mean income producing activities. So you have to be doing an activity that will directly relate to you being able to get people, I'll use IIS as an example. So with IIS, you want people to join and be hard-coded through your account, right? And you would like those to be pre-qualified. So anything you can do to be able to send an invitation, right? If you can send an invitation, anything you can do to be able to get somebody to request, hey, send me an invitation. Anything you can do to be able to build that audience bigger. Anything you can do to be able to create value with that audience that they're engaging with. Anything you can do, all of that, all of those activities are income producing activities. Income producing activity would be like creating content, telling you, responding to DMs, having conversations with people. It'd be like a blog post, a YouTube video, a TikTok, a short, having DM conversations, building up to something that could turn into something. It would be something like placing advertisements or there's this long list of income producing activities. We'll get into those on a Thursday Super Zoom, but you need to be doing income producing activities 50% of your time. And the other 50% of your time can be spent learning. Learning would be an example of learning would be like watching a live Zoom, watching one of the academies, watching a tutorial video, any of that kind of, any of the type of, reading a book would be considered learning. Look, right here, being here on this training right here is not an income producing activity. I separate learning from income producing activities because it is important and you need to spend some time on it, but you cannot. Most people spend too much time learning because it's easy. It's easy to just be a Zoomer. It's easy to just be a Zoomer. You just attend Zooms. It's the easiest, lowest hanging fruit. Attend Zooms, get knowledge, go on with your life. You have to go from being a Zoomer to being a doer at the same time, right? So if you're new, 50-50. So for example, if you spent an hour on this training right here, then immediately afterwards, go spend an hour. Your next hour should be on an income producing activity before you get back on and do something else. Now, a lot of you guys spend a lot of time talking to each other or talking to friends and stuff like that. And I'm going to issue a big challenge to you guys. I would suggest to stop doing that. I know a lot of you guys want the social aspect of this, and I get it. If you're just here for social, then it doesn't matter. But if you are here to succeed and you are spending hours a day talking with other people, having little accountability groups or having little conversations or stuff like that, it's just absolutely draining your bank account because the lost opportunity cost is immeasurable. So again, you have to do at least 50% of your time spent on your business has to be income producing activities, which in the case of IIS would be directly referring people into your business. But in the case of mindset, it could be anything. Do you know what I'm saying? It could be, you could apply it to your real estate business. You could apply it to your network marketing business. You could apply it to your own software company, right? So you have to identify what your own income producing activities are, but you have to spend at least 50% of your time. So if you look at the amount of hours you spent in the day, like I had a conversation with somebody the other day and they're like, oh my God, I spent 4 hours on Zooms yesterday with people in the community. And I was like, okay, let's come back to that in a minute. So can you tell me for the other, let's say 4 hours that day, can you specifically describe the income producing activities that you did that filled the other 4 hours? And they were like, well, I made a plan to go do those. And it's like, no, you guys, short game thinkers don't think that way. Long game thinkers think every single day, I need to spend at least 50% of my time doing income producing activities. So I'm always focused on long goal. And then in the short game, yeah, I'll jump on this live Zoom. Yeah, I'll jump on a call. I'll answer this message. These are all short game activities. The long game is, in order for me to get to that kingdom through the forest and through the hills and through the obstacles, in order for me to go on that journey, end up at the kingdom, I need to be able to go step by step, day by day, doing income producing activities that get me there. So I use the analogy a lot that let's say you have an axe and you're trying to chop down a tree. So you have to have the right tools, and then you have to have the right skills, right? You have to have the right swing. You have to be able to cut in the right exact way. But even with all of that, eventually, if you're just cutting, the blade is going to get dull. And so you could literally be sitting there and, for the first hour, the tree was chopping down well, right? But then for the next hour, you didn't really make any progress, but you worked just as hard. That's why I say you need mindset. Mindset is where you're going to take that axe, you're actually going to sharpen the axe. You need to always be sharpening yourself. Always be learning, always be growing, always be developing. You have to become the person that can handle success, but also you have to be the doer that gets the success. So you have to be able to balance these. If you're new and you haven't made much money, I would spend 50-50 time, right? 50-50 focus. 50% of time learning, 50% of time doing, actually doing too. Not, I don't want to hear any excuses, actually doing. I don't want to hear, hey, getting on a Zoom with a friend is doing, it's not. Income producing activities. Then once you start getting better, once you start getting your mindset worked, your mindset's starting to do good, you're starting to get your skill set up, then I would recommend going to more like 60-40. Spend 60% of your time on income producing activities, 40% of your time on learning. And then as you start to get better, 70% of your time on income producing activities and 30% of your time sharpening your axe. And eventually your goal should be to get in the 80-20 club. 80% of your time doing, 20% of your time leveling up. Always learning, always growing. You never really want to, and once you become retired, then you can go all the way back into just learning all the time, right? But to get to the financial goal you need to get to, it's going to take a lot of income producing activities. So your mindset to be a long game player has to say, okay, this is my goal. I'm going to give myself enough runway. I'm going to break it down and to figure out exactly what are some things I could do. What skills am I going to need? What gifts am I going to need to be able to accomplish this goal? And then on a day-to-day basis, how can I do activities that will create wins for me? So if you guys want a simple goal right now, I would say this. If you're just a free member here, I would say the simplest goal, sign up for the free affiliate program. The simplest goal is you have to invite at least one new person, one new member every single day into the system. That is a simple goal. It is free. It is not hard to invite people for free. And you have to have simple, achievable goals, one new person every single day. If you set too big of a goal, you're going to mismanage your expectations. If you say, okay, I'm going to invite 100 people per day, what happens is the first day that you miss those 100 people, the very first day that you do that, you're toast. Because now you've already broken the cycle and you've already said, hey, it's acceptable that I don't always have 100. And so then you'll miss another day, another day, another day. Eventually the month goes by and I check in with you and go, okay, so you were going to invite 3,000 people this month. What happened? Well, I invited 6, and that's how people are. Because people set such big goals and they fall so short that they feel like a loser. They don't even bother. I'm going to give you another analogy. Okay. I want you to think about it like this. Let's use the analogy of weight loss. Okay, so let's say that you guys have seen like these shows like The Biggest Loser and those types of shows and things like that, right? So let's take something like that. That's weird. My laptop's not charging. Got it charged. So these shows like this, okay, let's take someone who's like 500 pounds, right? And this person wants to lose weight. Do you guys know that after this show is done, these people lose weight and they get down to like 200 pounds. They lost like 300 pounds, whatever, right? And when this show's done, you know that almost all, like 99% of those people gain back the weight. Do you guys understand why they gain back the weight? This is a core concept here for you, right? Why do they gain back the weight? They gain back the weight because the way in which they lost it was not sustainable. They were on a TV show, they were doing things. Let's put on our realistic hats. They want to lose that weight, let's say in 90 days or 6 months, right? But did they put it on in 6 months? Did they gain 300 pounds in 6 months? See, the thing is that they put the weight on little by little, day by day. They actually slowly gained weight. Most people slowly gained weight every single day, little by little, over the course of even sometimes 2, 3, 4 years. So if you go look at these people, they gradually gained it, right? They're on this trajectory of intaking more calories than they were burning, right? So they gradually gained weight over the course of years. And then suddenly when they want to lose weight, they don't think, okay, let's reverse that and go back down to the same trajectory. They want to immediately lose weight and they want to lose it all. And they want to lose it all in like 6 months or 90 days. It's ineffective. It doesn't work. That level of that's short game thinking and it doesn't work. And even when you do it, because you're on a TV show and you want to win money, You just gain it right back. So if you think about it like this and you go, okay, what is a more realistic thing, right? Okay, I weigh 500 pounds and my goal is to get to 200 pounds. Okay, well, let's say then I would go to somebody and I would go to an actual person and say, okay, what's a realistic amount of weight to lose every single day, right? And the person might say, for someone your size and someone that maybe a professional says, the most would be like a pound a day. So I could see you losing maybe 30 pounds per month if you discipline yourself. And then you're going to give yourself a little bit of wiggle room, right? So probably in a year would be a realistic time frame. So you set the long game goal. I want to go from 500 pounds to 200 pounds. You got to be realistic, use realism and say, okay, a pound a day is like the most, and I'm not going to be perfect. And so I'm going to give myself 1 year. So my goal, my game plan now is not to lose 200 pounds. My game plan is a pound a day. My goal is to lose a pound a day. Then I would kind of figure out, okay, what is my caloric intake? And I need to be operating in a caloric deficit every single day. So I need to be able to track and measure my performance every single day. Where performance is measured, performance improves. So I need to measure my performance every single day. I need to start tracking and measuring and start finding a sustainable pattern I can get in. If I go too quick, if I just starve myself, then I'm going to binge eat at night. If you're too severe about it, if you're too short-term thinking, instead, just be sustainable. Just be sustainable, right? You want to be able to have something be trackable. The reason I like caloric intake and caloric deficit is because in my experience in my life, where performance is measured and tracked, it's going to improve. And the thing is that if you're just start eating better or something like that, it could still work, but it's for the most part, it's not going to work. And the reason it's not going to work is because you can't give yourself unmeasurable goals. Unmeasurable goals would say, hey, I was on this mindset training with Chris Record. I changed my paradigm and I went out and I made $10,000 a month. You would be assigning the wrong metrics to it. So you need to have something on a daily basis that is measurable and trackable. You can't just go out and say, okay, I'm just going to talk to people. You can't go out, okay, today I'm just going to go talk to people. No, you have to be very measurable, very trackable. What can we track? We can track the invitations you're putting into the system and whether those invitations are enrolling. Start there. Start with something measurable, trackable, that's simple enough that you could sustain it. Instead of 1 pound a day, it's 1 person a day. Just try to get 1 person a day. Over the course of a year, you'll eventually have some days where you have more than 1. You have 2 or 3. Once you get the hang of it, you might be able to get to 5 or 10 a day. Then all of a sudden, next thing you know, you start getting some results, start placing some ads. Then you're going to get to 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 a day. Next thing you know, 100. By the end of the year, you're getting 100 new people in every single day. But you never would have been able to see that right now. Right now, you just need to start getting in a person every single day. So you got to take your long goals, you got to gamify them and turn them into levels. You got to focus on each level at a time. What can I do? Set small, achievable goals, keep them realistic so you can create some dopamine intakes and keep that dopamine boosting. Stop setting bad expectations. Stop setting goals that you miss. And even if 1 in person is too hard, then don't set your goal on the person to start with. If you're having trouble getting even 1 person a day, then ask yourself, okay, how can I start building an audience that can get a person? Maybe you're going to start your goals a little bit more achievable and say, okay, I'm going to make a daily post on my personal Facebook every day for 30 days. That's it. A daily post on my personal Facebook every day for 30 days. That's it. And if you do that, then that will start creating the habit. So instead of going to the gym and say, I'm gonna go work out, I'm gonna hit all these weights, I'm gonna do this big old thing. You know what? Just go to the gym every day. Make your first goal. I'm just gonna check in. I'm gonna check in at the gym every single day. Go there, check in. Eventually, you'll go there and you'll want to stay one day. Might as well stay and walk on the treadmill. Eventually go there and say, okay, I'm already created the habit. I might as well be for half an hour every morning. Okay, I like this. Let me try jogging. Okay, next thing you know, you become somebody who wants to see if you can make it a whole mile, run a whole mile. The next thing you know, you're like, hey, let me schedule a whole morning. Then you got all the workout gear, you got your agenda. Next thing you know, your fitness is on track. But it all started with just going and checking in. And so let me wrap up here. I'm gonna give maybe 3 more minutes. We're gonna do a wrap up. So let me give you a quick vision. My goal here is to come to you every single Monday live and be able to teach you a different mindset principle, whether it's about money, whether it's about leveling up, whether it's about business, whether it's about learning better, crafting your skills, whatever it is. This is the mindset portion of your week. I want you to come here and join us live every single Monday. Make that commitment. That's like showing up to the gym. Make the commitment. 1 hour every Monday live. Find a way to be able to rearrange your schedule to be able to be on here and join us live for this session. If you have work during the time, then maybe rearrange your lunch break or whatever it is and say, hey, I'd like to be able to adjust my break so it's at this time. Will that work for you? And a lot of times they'll work around it. Make it happen so that you can join us here for an hour every single Monday. We'll give you that daily boost of dopamine. We'll give you that, or that weekly boost of dopamine. We'll give you that refresh that you need to be able to keep you on track on your long game journey. The reason I wanted to start with long game is because you need to adopt a long game mindset, not a short game mindset. Stop chasing shiny objects. Stop being the squirrel that chases nuts. Stop trying to focus on what's right in front of you. Pull this down and say, this, for once in my life, I'm going to be realistic. I have problems. I'm going to handle those a different way. But for once in my life, I'm going to be realistic. I'm going to set a solid, achievable goal. I'm going to give myself enough time to do it. And I'm going to do some type of daily disciplined activity to make sure that I get there. I'm going to spend my time, at least 50% of my time on income producing activities. And we've got your back, and we're going to be here every single week. So with that being said, I look forward to seeing you guys next Monday. I'm here every single Monday. We don't do questions on these. We don't do tech support on these. It's just Mindset Mondays with Chris Record. Season 1, episode 1 is in the books. I'll put this replay up soon, and I'll see you guys on the next session. Thank you.